Hey guys, Eternal7 here, and today I am going to be ranking all 19 Diary of a Wimpy Kid books. Now, for the most part, I am more so into novel-type fiction. However, I do have some appreciation for the graphic comics, or I guess somewhat graphic comics in this case. And Diary of a Wimpy Kid is a really big part of my childhood. I was an avid reader of this stuff since like first, second grade, and I've been collecting the books all the way up until No Brainer, the second to last one. So I will mention, if you saw in the thumbnail, there's two books that I don't have. Diaper Overload and the newest one, Hot Mess. However, I have read them, so I will still be including them in this ranking. But to not waste any more time, how about we start out with number 19, which is Diaper Overload. When I first saw the cover of this book and when it was first announced, I was actually pretty excited because Roderick is one of my favorite characters. He's definitely one of the most interesting, probably one of the most relatable, to be honest, especially how crazy the Heffley family is. But even when going into a deep dive, there was nothing really interesting about it. It was actually pretty underwhelming, and like all the descriptions about the band and how they, got gigs and stuff, just it didn't hit. Like it felt like it would, but it just didn't. And for some reason, I just was not a fan of this one at all. So that's number 19. Number 18 is The Third Wheel. This is probably my least favorite out of one of the older books. My biggest issue with this one is that it's just Greg being a simp for 200 pages. There's nothing really special or creative about this one that actually makes it stick out. It's just kind of there. And then there's like the whole small packs thing, which I guess is like there to like make it a little more interesting, but even then I'm still kind of underwhelmed for the most part. I guess it is kind of entertaining in some parts, but overall it's just and then we have the next one, number 17, which is The Deep End. Deep End is it's all right. It's like The Long Haul and The Getaway combined into one book. One thing you'll notice in this ranking is that I really do not like the vacation books. I think they typically rehash off of each other, and what they did with Long Haul, that was cool, but like once they started doing it over and over again, it got really tiring, really tedious, and this is just an example of why I don't like it. So yeah, that's number 17. Coming in at number 16 is Diaper Overload. This is one of the books that I don't have a copy of, and it's Diary from a Kid book with sports. There's not really much I can say about that one. Coming in at number 16, we have The Getaway. Basically, like what I was saying with The Deep End, I'm not really a fan of the vacation books. I did like the first 50 pages or so where they're like rushing out to the airport when it's like blizzarding with snow and stuff. I thought that was really cool. Just the hecticness of it all was really entertaining. But once they got to the island, it became really generic. However, like the part where they were like escaping and stuff, that was cool. That I also really enjoyed. It's like the first 50 pages and the last 50 pages were good, but everything in the middle of that, not my thing, personally. Coming in at number 15, we have Hot Mess. It's another one that I don't own. Again, I like how it talked about Greg's mom's side of the family. I always thought they were very interesting, especially from Hard Luck. So the fact that he brought him back was definitely much appreciated. But for the most part, it's probably better that the series ends sometime soon. Number 14, we have The Long Haul, probably the best vacation book by default. Part of the reason why this book is so low is because I think the movie, the terrible movie, kind of overshadows it a little bit. So, every time I reread this book, I get reminded of how bad that movie is, and I think about the diaper hands, which is not in this book, but still, it comes to my mind, and it does not give me a pleasant taste at all. I will admit, like the chase from the Beardos, was pretty funny, pretty entertaining, but again, it's kind of like the first book that like signified the downfall of the series, and yeah, that's why it's here. Also, apparently I miscounted because that's number 13. This is number 12. So yeah, number 12, Wrecking Ball. This is probably the book that I have the least clear thoughts on because it's one of the only books that I haven't reread. I read it back in Christmas of 2019 when I first bought it, and I haven't reread it since then. It wasn't bad. I mean, it was enjoyable and entertaining at the very least. I like the idea that, he was getting his house renovated, but nothing about it is rereadable, and I don't even know if I'll ever reread it, so it's just kind of there, to be honest. Now, number 11, this is kind of where we get into, like, pretty good, like, I actually enjoy these, everything before then was just, like, but this is pretty solid. And coming in at number 11 is the first Diary of a Wimpy Kid book. Now, some may put this higher, some may put this lower, but I kind of have it somewhere near the bottom half of the list, almost near the top half. The biggest issue with this book is that Greg is, well, he's extremely unlikable. I know that's kind of the point of the book series. He's not really supposed to be a likable character. He's just supposed to portray a middle schooler. But they really make him just unpleasant throughout this entire book, and they really just drag that point across where it's not really super fun to read. And that's why I have to leave it out of the top 10. But it's still a classic nonetheless. Coming in at number 10, we have Old School. Very beat up copy right here. Had this one since 2015, I believe, right when it came out. But again, when I first read this book, I really did not like it at all. And I think it was because, like, it was near the end. It was, like, at the camp or something where, like, Rowley, like, hit his head. He got, like, a tooth. Honestly, I don't really remember it. It has been a while since I read this. But I really did not like that part of it. So it kind of just left a bad taste in my mouth for a long time. But then when I reread it a few years after that, I kind of started to grow some appreciation towards it. I just thought it was a nice little story and nothing more, to be honest. Then number 9, we had The Meltdown. Meltdown, again, pretty good, pretty original. This is like the first Diary of a Wimpy Kid book where we haven't had anything else like it before. Having it all centered around a snowball fight is just absolutely awesome. And yeah, Jeff Kinney did a great job on this one. Coming in at number 8, Cabin Fever. Cabin Fever, another snow-themed one. Again, very hectic, very chaotic, and I always love that when he describes that into his stories. This one does kind of drag on, especially in the middle half, but near the end, it definitely gets really good. So yeah. Coming in at number 7, we have Double Down. Now, most people put this near the bottom of their list, and for good reason, because it's kind of the book where nothing happens at all. But for some reason, that's kind of always appealed to me. It's because, like, there was nothing really special about it to really, like, make it into a big topic. And that's not really what Diary of a Wimpy Kid was about. It was not supposed to be upscale. It was just supposed to be about a guy talking about his life, and that's all it was. A lot of people complain that the only thing that happens is in the last 25 pages when they're shooting the war film with Rowley and stuff. And even though that definitely was the best part, that doesn't mean the stuff before it was any less boring. And for some reason, I've always found this one so rereadable, so I thought I had to at least put it at number 7 on the list. So that's Double Down. Coming in at number 6, Roderick Rules. For a long time, this used to be my favorite. Stuff has changed a little bit, but again, this is just an absolute classic. The movie, too, is absolutely amazing as well. Just the dynamic, between Greg and Roderick is just genius. Absolutely amazing. Number 5, Dog Days. Again, I love everything about summer. Summer is my life, and just Summer the book. I mean, like, I couldn't ask for better, and it's so good. It's so good. Number 4. We have Last Straw. Now, out of the original, like, 3-year stuff that came up 2007 to 2009, this is definitely my favorite. And when I was younger, I always thought it was just a good book and nothing more. But the older I get, the more I appreciate the coming-of-age genre. And I think out of the coming-of-age trope of it all, this is probably one of the best because it's all about Greg trying to improve himself. And the last 2 books, we don't really see him try to do that. But here, he wants to impress his father. I mean, of course, he doesn't want to be sent to military school, but he also kind of has that in him, that he doesn't want to be looked at as a disappointment. And I just found this one to be really deep and actually pretty well written. So yeah, Last Straw, number 4. Number 3, we have The Ugly Truth. This is another really great coming of age story for Greg. he's not really hanging out with Rowley anymore. They kind of had a falling out, so he's basically trying to find his own path, what makes him him, because he's a very different person without Rowley, as you see in this book. And he goes through a lot of things you wouldn't see in some of the other ones as well. And, I love the family reunion too, because, family reunions are always something I love in stories. And it's just, it's kind of like a comfort book, like Double Down. It's a one that I can reread endlessly, and I never get sick of it. So yeah. And number 2, surprisingly, No Brainer. If you told me before I read this book that this would end up being my second favorite, I would have laughed in your face. There was no way that a book that was coming out when like the series was basically pretty much dead at this point was this good. But for some reason, it just absolutely worked for me in every single way. Now, some people don't like it, and I totally understand that. But everything about this book is genius. I think this is probably the best written book in the series, as it just shows this deteriorating school with terrible test scores as it just crumbles. And it's just the way it portrays this darkness, this misery, as everything is falling apart with each page is so good. So good. And the fact that it is called like 1-800-DEAD-BUGS Middle School for like a few pages is just absolutely hilarious too, and how it gets turned into like a public area more so than just a school. Just, it's one of those books that I never thought I would find like this one, but when I did, I truly appreciate it. And that leaves the last one, Hard Luck. Absolutely phenomenal. Now, when I first read this book, I thought it was pretty good. I thought it was, it's a solid story. It's the post Third Wheel book. And that's what I like about it, because it's one of the only Diary of a Kid books that actually builds off from the other, where, he has Abigail and stuff. And as you saw, Third Wheel was one of my least favorite, but this one ended up being number 1. Now, I relate to Greg in this story a lot because, again, Rowley doesn't really care much about him anymore because, he's latched onto somebody else. So he's got to find other things to occupy his time with. And the way he does it, and the way he has to go through these moral dilemmas, are done in such a well thought out way. And the Magic 8 Ball too, is really great as well. And how he becomes so comfortable with, this like life of luck he's been living, where he could potentially fail, the 7th grade. I just think that's also pretty funny as well. And of course, the family reunion trope is really great. Going into Greg's mom's family and how complicated they are, I can relate to that because my mom's family is also very complicated too. So just, I don't know, I almost feel like this book was written about me in some ways, and that's why it is my favorite. So anyway, that was my ranking of all the Diary of a Kid books. Hopefully I didn't go on too much of a tangent.